Angels and Biscuits, CSDL here, and this is my Red Scrolls of Magic reading vlog. So I have read Red Scrolls of Magic before, so this is a reread, but this is my first time reading it after having read some of the Mortal Instruments. I have read the first three, City of Bones, City of Ashes, and City of Glass, and I've seen people recommend putting Red Scrolls after City of Glass. That's where it fits in the timeline, so that's where I'm going to put it for my reread. So yeah, this is the start for Red Scrolls of Magic reading vlog. If you want to check out my other Shadowhunters reading vlogs, I will link them up in that corner thingy and in the description box. But yeah, so to start today's reading vlog, I have, as usual, a beverage, coffee, because it's still pretty early for me. Though I would drink coffee at 10 o'clock at night. Like, I'm not that way. Also, I have pizza left over from Domino's, because who eats a whole pizza? Well, I can't eat a whole pizza, so there's leftovers. And it is now my breakfast and lunch. So yeah, I have coffee, I have snacks, I have a book. Also with me today is Alec's Stele, because Red Scrolls of Magic is obviously about Alec and Magnus. So I thought I would have my Stele with me to, I don't know, channel a little bit of Alec. And just, you know, because I can, because I have this as a prop and I love it and I want any excuse to take it and play around with it a little bit, because, you know, I know I cosplay a warlock majority of the time, but I kind of love all of the Shadowhunter runes. Like, I would love to just draw stuff on my arm and have it. I'd love to. Anyway, so let's start the reading. And yeah, so this is my first time reading it with context of the other books. So I wonder if that will change any of my thoughts on the book. I don't think so, because I absolutely loved it with no context. So I think context can only make it a little better, right? I don't know. But anyway, we will find out. So let's get some reading done for today. Okay, small side note. So we have started just a little bit. Like, I know this book is essentially, you know, Malik trying to have a nice vacation together, and it goes horribly awry, shenanigans ensue. That is essentially my description of this book when I read it the first time and did like my monthly wrap up. But I forgot how much I love Magnus in this book. Like, how, just right away in the beginning, he's already kind of panicking, because he's like, I need to do Paris right this time, and like his conversation, his imaginary conversation with a travel agent was wonderful. And I forgot like how much it does start off with them trying to have this normal, wonderful, well, normal-ish magical vacation, just the two of them, and just how that doesn't happen. And it is, oh my gosh, they totally deserve it, because, you know, when I read it the first time, right, when Magnus says to his imaginary travel agent, we fought this epic battle, good versus evil, you know, good won, we need a vacation. I didn't like have the context of this said magical battle, but now that I have read City of Glass, you know, I do have the context, and I totally agree that they need a vacation. So yeah, already I'm seeing context just makes me feel for them more, and I'm barely 3 pages in. Like, I felt for them this whole book, right? Trying to have this just nice vacation between the two of them, and then shenanigans ensue, and then they could no longer have this wonderful vacation. And now that I actually have the context of what happened previous to their vacation, what sparked the desire for it, I really am really feeling for them already. I love Magnus. Okay. Back to his imaginary conversation real quick with his travel agent. His imaginary travel agent. Shadowhunters, and they're invisible protectors, shining and virtuous, the actual non-ironic definition of holier than thou. It is incredibly annoying. They literally are holier than thou, certainly holier than me, as I am demon spawn. Oh, Magnus, no, but you are wonderful and pure and good, despite Asmodeus. And I love that. Like, Magnus, literally, they are holier than thou. Oh. And then later on, like, he talks about how Alec stood in the hall of his ancestors and kissed Magnus full on the mouth under the eyes of all the Nephilim assembled there. That did not register how big of a deal that was to me on the first read through because, right, I had no context, but now I'm like, I'm so proud of you, Alec, like, because I understand what that meant for these two and for Alec, and context is key sometimes. I still enjoyed this book immensely without the context, but with context, I get more out of it, I suppose. Okay, I just finished the first chapter, and this is actually such a breath of fresh air after reading 3 books, you know, kind of back to back, all about Jason Clary, mostly focusing on Jason Clary, and every time we had moments with Malik, we'd get cut off so soon. We never got to hear their witty banter or get really a glimpse into them. Oh, did I miss this? Like, where was it? Like, Alec questioning whether Magnus can drive a hot air balloon. Like, that was just so cute and funny. And Magnus is, he kind of, we get a glimpse into Magnus and all of his insecurities. Like, in the other books, we kind of just see him as this very sarcastic, really cool, confident warlock, but I think here, like, unless you read the Bane Chronicles first or something, but this book, we really get to see that Magnus, too, has a lot of insecurities when it comes to relationships. Like, it's not just Alec. Like, Magnus has been in relationships before, and he's been told all these, like, harsh things multiple times, you know, throughout his life. Like, he's too much, he's too difficult, impossible to take seriously, terrifying, not enough, you know. Like, we see that Magnus isn't without his insecurities in relationships, and he's doing his best to make this perfect for Alec and for himself. So, because he thinks this is gonna all blow up in his face. Spoiler, Magnus, you marry him and have children, you adopt children with him, so it works out. But he doesn't know that yet, and he just wants, like, this one perfect memory with Alec, and it's kind of, like, sad at the same time. Like, it's sweet, but it's sad because he thinks this isn't gonna work, or Alec's gonna tire of him, and it's like, no, Magnus, but he won't. Also, I love how this chapter ends. Like, Magnus Bane did his best in life to always be spectacular. This crash was. Because, you know, they crashed the hot air balloon that they were riding in, and in true Magnus Bane fashion, it was spectacular. Okay, continuing on. Okay. I love Magnus. Okay, so him and Alec are, like, making out in Paris, and they're making their way back to Magnus's apartment. They're gonna skip the cabaret, and Magnus is getting all turned around at night in Paris. His sense of direction apparently is not that great for a warlock who's been to Paris many, many times in his life. But Alec, being a Shadowhunter, has an impeccable sense of direction, and Magnus is like, I'm never leaving home without a Shadowhunter again, or I'm never traveling. What did he say? It was great. Shadowhunters were so useful when traveling. Magnus planned to never again leave home without one. Like, that's kind of a mood though. I would be the same way because I am directionally challenged all the time. Like, I need a Shadowhunter. Just, can I have one to travel with all the time? That'd be cool. Okay. Magnus is such a relatable mood. Okay, so he's trying to search his memories to see where exactly this missing memory is. Someone tampered with his memories about his cult that he maybe accidentally, jokingly started, right? So he's sifting through his past and making like a timeline of his life, and Alec went out to see some sights, and apparently it's impossible not to stop for coffee and snacks in Paris. Like, Alec, mood, I didn't know you cared so much about snacks, but I am here for it. And then he brings Magnus back some kind of chocolate snack. I don't know, there's chocolate involved. I'm not an expert on French snacks, but I want to be someday. And Magnus is like, oh, I think I found something. Come into my magical ball of memory papers. And Alec was gonna put down the snack, and Magnus is like, no, bring the snack with you. And I'm like, yes, Magnus, that is a mood, because I too would want the snack brought, because I love snacks. I love being brought snacks. Like, Magnus, me too. That's just such a relatable mood. Magnus is just a mood. Okay. Back to book. Magnus makes the best jokes. So they walked by a werewolf shop in the Paris Shadow Market, and Alec gets growled at by the werewolf because, you know, he's a shadow hunter. He's not the most welcome in the market. But Magnus, okay, so Alec gets growled at. He's like, didn't want to shop there anyway, said Alec. Obviously not, said Magnus. Nobody wants to eat at a place called Wolfsburger. Way to come across like a cannibal, guy. What? I love Magnus. His humor is great. Also, we're getting a lot of insecurities coming up from Alec this time. We had a chapter where he's like, oh my gosh, does Magnus actually want to include me in his life? Oh my gosh. Am I feeling like, are we on the same page? What? Whom? Like, with Alec, I understand, though, because he's never had a relationship before. But, so yeah, this is the book where we see all of their little insecurities and all the cute moments, and we're getting so much already in just this much of the bookie. I need more bookies like this, more than just, I need more bookies like this one. Okay, so now Alec is being a mood. He just admitted he worries too much. I mean, he was just fighting off a warlock who appeared to be coming after Magnus in the Shadow Market, right? But after the fight, he's all muddy and gross, and he sees Magnus, and he relaxes a smidgen, and he's like, yeah, I know, I worry too much. He's like, to himself, he's like, I worry too much. But there always seemed to be a lot to worry about. Demon attacks, trying to protect the people he loved from demon attacks. Strangers trying to make conversation with him. Like, that's something to worry about. Most people don't worry about that, but like, I get that one. I always like panic when I have to have conversations with people because I don't like people. Like, how do I people? Like, I get it. I do get it where Alec's coming from, but like, I love that that's included in his things to worry about list, you know? Like, that's just, it's wonderful. okay, like Magnus has had a lot of great lines and great moments, but that's been a good one from Alec so far. Okay, one, Shin-yoon is such a little liar because she's like, oh, demons killed my betrothed and I will never summon a demon and I've dedicated my life to hunting demons in his honor. Such a little liar, because I know, because I've read this before. Shin-yoon is the one in charge of the Crimson Hand, the cult, and she's trying to summon Asmodeus, Magnus's father, for power. She wants his power, but ooh. And Magnus is such a sweetheart, and he's so trusting, and she has such a good little sob story. He's buying into it. Like, he's believing the lies. Like, Alec wanted more details about her past and stuff. She's like, and Magnus is like, we all have secrets, Alec. Just because he doesn't want to tell Alec Asmodeus is his father, and that's a whole thing. But he should just trust Alec. I mean, I'm sure he has to tell him eventually. He does not tell him in this book, but he will have to at some point. But anyway, okay. So when they were on the train, the Orient Express, and they were attacked by all of those demons and stuff, and Alec protected the werewolf girl. Like, at first, the Downworlders were not very pro Shadowhunter when they were on the train, but then after he protected the werewolf girl and helped kill all the demons, they were like, totes, like, yeah, welcome Shadowhunter, totes, welcome here, come. And they were giving him and Magnus free, and Shin-yoon, free champagne and stuff, and it was like, see, not all Shadowhunters are terrible. And it was actually pretty great, because Alec is one of the few Shadowhunters that will, without hesitation, jump in the line of fire for a Downworlder. Like, it's so sweet. And then Alec and Magnus both have a lot of, you know, no, don't protect me, protect yourself, you're worth more. No, you're worth more. You're both worth everything. Like, just protect each other. It's fine. You both deserve to live, guys. Like, come on. I love them, but oh my goodness. Okay. Anyway, so like, we're almost halfway into the book. Anyway, so still super in love, and I'm gonna still read a little bit more. I'm not done yet. And I think having that context of the first three Mortal Instruments books has been really great, because I have a feel for Alec and Magnus as characters now. Prior to this book, I understand the struggles they went through to get here, and I still just love seeing them struggle to have a nice vacation and all the shenanigans that ensue. Like, oh, we're just trying to have a nice time, be alone together. Shenanigans ensue. So I'm stopping at chapter 13 for now. We're at the part where Alec, Magnus, and Shin-yoon are at this big warlock party celebrating the fall of Valentine, which now makes more sense with context. Magnus has been told a lot of things about his relationship with Alec. His other warlock friends are kind of putting these guilt trips on him, like, are you sure he loves you? Be careful, he's still part of the Clave. The Clave would punish the both of you. Like, they're putting doubts into his head. Like, I don't think they realize that Magnus is actually pretty insecure about this relationship already, and they're kind of just piling on to that unintentionally, I think. But like, they have his best interests at heart, but at the same time, they're just adding to his stress. And I think Magnus is now going to go off to try to find Alec, because he just wants to dance with him and have a nice little night before they continue their search for the Crimson Hands, like, cult room, which should be in this building that the party's in. And Shin-yoon is still, like, lying to Magnus, sort of. She's telling him part truths, but then she's also twisting the truth. She's acting like a Seelie, although Seelies can't lie, and she is lying, so she's worse. But Magnus is still trusting her. He's buying everything that she's selling. Alec is still skeptical of her, but they have bonded over how to kill demons, Like, that's a conversation Alec actually can get behind and get into because it's something he actually knows about, a lot about. But overall, Alec is still kind of suspicious of her, which is fair because she's the bad guy. And they're not going to find that out for quite some time. Okay, so anyway. One thing I do want to say about this book compared to the Mortal Instruments books is the pacing. So it takes maybe halfway into one of the Mortal Instruments books before things start to pick up and the plot gets going, like actions and things and happen. But this one, things pick up pretty early. Like first couple chapters, there's a hot air balloon crash. Then there's a demon attacks on a train, and there's a lot more going on consistently in this book, and I rather enjoy that. It keeps things fast-paced, keeps you on your toes. While I like the Mortal Instruments and I don't mind that it takes a lot more time to get going, that doesn't necessarily bother me, but I'm just remembering why I really love this book so much, and it is still currently my favorite. Like, I was not wrong to pick this book as my favorite Shadowhunters novel. Like, there's a lot I just really love about it. On top of getting to know Alec and Magnus, because in the Mortal Instruments, you know, we don't really get to know them that well, even as individual characters. Like, they're kind of on the sidelines to Clary and Jace. So this is just so good because we see all of Magnus's insecurities. We see Alec's insecurities. We see their thoughts, what's going on in their head. And not just their insecurities, but the good parts of their personality, their strengths. We get to see Alec and Magnus fight together in battle against demons. And it's great because they're both wonderfully skilled. So there's just a lot to love about it. Like, Alec, we don't get to see him fight that much in the Mortal Instruments. We don't see him at his full Shadowhunter self. He is actually a very good fighter. He is very talented. And Magnus too, like the way Magnus uses his magic is just amazing. And when they're together, oh, so good. We also see them panic over each other a lot, and we get to see, like, from Alec, he's never had that sense of panic before when someone was in danger. Like when he thought Magnus could die or Magnus was in serious trouble, like, the feeling he felt is new to him, and it was so sweet. Like, you could tell he loves Magnus, but Magnus is still doubtful if he loves him, and it's like, no, Magnus, no doubts. He loves you so much. Okay, but they're still going through some doubts right now, and I know at the end of it, they work some of those doubts out and things. They talk a little bit, and Alec gets to share some of those feelings that he's been thinking this whole time, and he just hasn't said them to Magnus, but they do come out at the end, and that's like one of my favorite moments in the whole book, and I can't wait to get back to that. But we have to get through all of the rest first, and there's still a lot more struggles to come. So yeah, I have stopped at chapter 13 for now. I might actually pick this up again later, maybe before I exercise again, take a couple hours and read some more. If I'm lucky, I could finish this book tonight, like, because I love it so much. I could probably finish it in a day, if not 2 days, because it is so wonderful. Oh, and I don't think I mentioned this earlier, but I am reading out of my newest copy of the Red Scrolls of Magic. This was a prize I won from Cassandra Clare's Instagram contest. It's an advanced reader's copy, and I am just loving it. It makes this book that much more special to me. So yeah, I have been reading out of my newest copy of Red Scrolls for this reread, and it's been wonderful. It's a very sentimental book to me now, and I love it. But yeah, that is all I'm going to read for now, and I will hopefully hopefully have some more time to read tonight, and I will see you guys then. Okay, so we are back tonight to read some more Red Scrolls because I just can't not read more today. And we left off at chapter 13 earlier, so that's where we will pick up. Last that was going on, Alec, Magnus, and Shinyun were at a Warlock's celebratory Valentine is Dead party. That's a good reason to party, I'm just saying. And they're looking for the entrance to the cult that they're tracking. They're looking for the secret entrance to the room they used to do stuff in. Sneaky Shinyun. Such a little liar, but that's beside the point. So, they're at this party. Alec and Magnus, I think, are gonna dance together soon, which is gonna be such a cute scene. I love that scene. Can't wait. Okay, so now you may remember him, Lucy, from my last reading vlog, but we have Lucy from Disenchantment as my reading buddy, and we also have Alex Stelle once again because I want to. But yeah, so let's get right back into it. Okay, so I totally did not pick up on this or the context of this when I first read it, but okay, so we got to where Alec encounters Raphael. And oh my gosh, did I love Raphael in this book. But, like, okay, he's texting someone RF. He's texting Ragnar Fell. He's texting Ragnar. Oh my gosh, that makes it sad because he thinks Ragnar is dead and he's just sending him these text messages and all of his feelings and his thoughts, and because they used to be best buds, like from the Bane Chronicles, we learned that they love to talk to each other because they're both kind of grumps, and it's like, oh, honestly, that's a sad revelation to learn. Like, poor Raphael. And Alec thinks he's just a child. Okay, so that's just funny, but realizing that it's Ragnar that he's texting. Oh my gosh. The feels, okay? The feels is all I'm saying. That's a lot of feels happening right now. Okay, Raphael might be a sassy little brat, right? But he did give Alec his phone number. He does care about Magnus, even if he's like, Tessa's my only warlock friend now. Like, we know he cares about Magnus. And then he tells Alec, like, I don't care if you, as the kids say, wound his whittle fifis. Like, he doesn't care if you hurt his feelings. Just don't kill him. And it's like, oh, it's kind of means a lot coming from Raphael, you know? Like, I love him so much in this book. I can't express how much I love Raphael. And, well, Elliot and Lily, too. Like, they're just really, really fun. But yeah. Like, he legitimately cares whether Magnus lives or dies. Like, he wants Magnus alive. Raphael. He does have feelings. Despite, you know, pretending like he doesn't all the time. Alec made a joke. Okay. So, they made their way down into a creepy dungeon, into like this abandoned room, and he finds a sticker. It's a manufacturer's sticker. Someone bought this in a souvenir shop. If this thing is magical, then I'm the Angel Raziel. The Shadowhunters really wouldn't approve of me dating the Angel Raziel, said Magnus. But they'd have to be nice to you, Alex said, brandishing the statue, or I would smite them. made a joke. But it's true, though. He could smite them. Like, Raziel was awesome. Okay, so we have made it to part 3. I am gonna keep reading, of course. But we just had that really, really sweet and emotional moment where, I mean, first Alec nearly drove them off a cliff, so that wasn't very sweet, but that was kind of hilarious. But now they're camping for the evening, and Alec brings up that, you know, Magnus doesn't really talk about his past a lot, and he doesn't. And he finally admits he's afraid he's gonna say something, and Alec's gonna think it's too much, and he's gonna leave. And Alec's like, no, like, I want to know about you. I want to know these things. And then Magnus told him, you know, about his childhood and what happened to his mother, and how his stepfather tried to kill him, and how he burned his stepfather alive, and how much guilt he's felt about that. And Alec's like, no, I mean, you were saving yourself, Magnus. Like you're a good person. You saved so many people, and then if you hadn't saved yourself, I wouldn't have met you. You wouldn't have saved all these people. All, like, honestly, Alec is kind of awkward with a very dry sense of humor, but when it counts, he really knows what to say, and I kind of love that about him, especially with Magnus, especially in this book. He just knows what to say, and it's just so sweet, and I love seeing those moments between them, because we really don't get to see any of those moments in any of the other books. Well, the main books, anyway. Obviously, the Eldest Curses series focuses on them, so we will see those moments, but, like, this is the content I'm here for. I am here for learning about what's going on in their heads. I am here for their relationship development and the progress and them becoming closer to each other. Like, they're trusting each other. They're learning how to share things and not be so closed off, which they both do that. Like, they're both kind of, but they're getting better, and it's so sweet. And I really love this book more now that I have all the context. Okay, on to part 3. Okay, so they both want to move in together, but they both don't want to say it out loud. These two, communication really is one of their biggest issues. Like, they have all these thoughts and all these feelings that they don't tell each other. They just think them, and they're like, oh, but I couldn't possibly tell my boyfriend, who's the sweetest man in the universe, my thoughts and feelings, because I'm a dum-dum. I don't know. That's clearly what's happening with these two, but it's just so sweet. They both... Magnus thought, oh, I wonder what Alexander would think about moving in. Oh, it's too soon. Maybe after a year. And then Alex, like, oh, I can't even go 30 minutes without missing Magnus. Like, it's just, oh my gosh, I've never missed someone this much. What do you think? I wonder what he'd think about moving in. Really, Alec? Really, Magnus? Just both of you. On three, just go. Say it. Say, I want to move in together. How hard is that? Or just be like, on 3, say first thought that comes to mind, and it's, I want to live with you. I don't know. I just, like, really, guys? Though we are making progress, though. So hopefully we will get to finish this soon. Now, I'm pretty sure Magnus still isn't going to tell Alec that Asmodeus is his father in this book, but I really wish he would. I don't know when that comes up. It must come up in one of the later The Mortal Instruments books. I don't know, but I think he should have told him in this book. Just saying. He's had plenty of chances. Oh, and Alec? Okay. Okay. Alec also suggested that Magnus wears his clothes and his fashion like an armor. I have said very similar things about him. Like the makeup or the eyeliners, the glitter, the flashy wardrobe. It's a means of, like, protecting himself. It's essentially armor. I totally agree with Alec on that one. Right. So Alec says he likes Magnus when his hair is not gelled up or he's free of the gel and the spikes. It wasn't like he didn't like Magnus's clothes, but Magnus wore them like an armor, a layer of protection between him and the world that didn't always meet someone like him with open arms. In which case, you know, his warlock self. And I think it also is like something Magnus can control about himself. Like he could never control the fact that he is Asmodeus' son and his cat eyes are always going to be there. But if you have enough eyeliner and eyeshadow and glitter, you're drawing attention to what you want people to notice about you. Same with the clothes. You're not noticing that he's this flashy warlock. You're just noticing that he is flashy. Or you're like, oh, look at that cool makeup on his face. And the cat eyes suddenly become second. I don't know, just Magnus Bane thoughts for the day. And I'm glad to see, like, Alec noticed it too. I mean, he's his boyfriend. He should notice these things. So, kind of proud of Alec, but like... Eileen thought Jace and Simon were a couple? I very much see why people kind of ship Jace and Simon. Like, even people in the book are shipping them. Like, Eileen's not wrong. Jace let Simon bite him. He's apparently hanging out with Jace now, playing video, or Jace is hanging out with Simon now, playing video games. Like, they're spending a lot of time together. He did bring Simon to Alicante. I see why Eileen may have thought that, but that's really funny. And that's like Alec just like, no, they're not. No. But to Alec's credit, Eileen keeps saying the vampire, and he's like, he has a name. His name is Simon. Simon. Like, I think that's really sweet, because Alec is usually the one in the books that's quick to defend downworlders, but like, he continues to do it, and it's just very sweet. Even if Simon and Clary aren't Alec's biggest, like, he's not their biggest fan, but he's still gonna treat them like he would anyone else, which he doesn't like a lot of people. Like, it takes him time to like people, but he treats them all equal, at least. Like, that is not something most Shadowhunters will do. How dense is Alec? Okay, I was just praising him for being smart, for being in tune with, like, perceptions of Magnus and, like, knowing what to say, and then he meets up with Helen Blackthorn and Eileen Penhallow, and suddenly he doesn't understand that Eileen's totally into Helen and she's not interested in dudes, and she's definitely not interested in Jace. Like, where does this thought keep coming from that she's into Jace and disappointed that Jace is not interested? Because no, Alec. She's totally into the ladies. Like Helen, who I am not her biggest fan in this book. Like, Alec, he was doing so well. He was being so smart. And then boom. Oh, and something that they talk about in this book that I think will be important, at least for one or two more of the Mortal Instruments books is that Alec was brought up super sheltered and super, like, out of touch with, with everything, but especially, like, his sexuality or other sexualities. Like, the first time he had heard, I think, bisexual was from Magnus. So, and, like, he didn't even know other people felt the way he did. And I think that's going to be important in the Mortal Instruments books, because I think Alec, his insecurities catch back up to him. There's more of them, or they're different ones that really didn't happen in this book, but they kind of surface in those books, from what I hear. And I think it's important to remember from here, like, we see it from Alec himself, that he was super sheltered, and a lot of these things are very new to him. Like, he literally had no context for stuff, and, like, some things come across as a little harsh, but I don't think they're as harsh as they seem, because Alec was so sheltered. So they weren't meant in the way, I don't know, I'm rambling. I just think that that's something important to Alec's character that we get in this book that we don't get in the Mortal Instruments. Okay, let's continue. Now we get the real story of Shinyun's past. The one where her betrothed and the entire village do turn on her. I think I prefer the other one better, where he's like, no, I love you anyway, but, you know. Like, I do feel for warlocks. A lot of them have such a tragic childhood, and that's just not fair. Yeah, so now we have the reveal, at least, that she was lying about her past. Don't think we get the reveal that she's evil for a bit, maybe like another chapter. Anyway, we'll find out. Should have realized she was lying the first time she talked about her past, but I had forgotten that. I forgot that it was tragic. I should have known, but, like, it's been a while, a lot of months since I've read this book, so certain things stick and other things, woof, you know? Yeah. Alexander Lightwood cannot seem to put together Eileen likes Helen, but he can figure out that Shinyun is the leader of the cult. How very Alec of him. Just saying. He knew before Magnus knew. I love Eileen so much. Okay. Alex, like, get out of my way, I'm going to save my man. And she's like, okay, let's go. Which Helen freaks out about, because she's like, no, why don't we get reinforcements? And Alex like, no, we cannot. No, I need to go save Magnus, like, right now, like yesterday. and Helen seems to only go because Eileen's going. But Helen, she's grown on me a little bit, Helen, but, like, Eileen, I still prefer Eileen right now. But I like the nickname she gives Alec, Lunatic Lightwood. The alliteration pleases me. I like alliterative things in Lunatic Lightwood. You would think that would apply more to Jace, because he's more reckless, but I guess he's not a Lightwood anymore. He'd be a Herondale. But I like it, Lunatic Lightwood. Oh, it's even better. All right, Lunatic Lightwood, lead the way. Let's go get your man. Yes, go get your man, Alec. Asmodeus has entered the chat, and, like, he's totally comparing Alec and Magnus to, like, a Disney fairy tale. Isn't that always the way it is in fairy tales? The prince can tell his true love even when she is transformed. A swan among other swans a swan among other swans, a pebble on a beach of sand. If only the world were a fairy tale, Nephilim. Asmodeus speaking through Bernard. But yeah, so Alec is currently having to try to tell which Magnus is real. There's like 100 different Magnuses fighting 100 different Shinyuns. So Asmodeus is like, here you go, you can keep Magnus if you could tell which one is him. And guess who could tell which one is Magnus? Alexander. Fun fact, I tend to enjoy the greater demons that I've read so far. Like Asmodeus, kind of fun. Samael from The Last Book of the White, also really fun and really cool. Angel Raziel, he's not a demon, but he, the only angel we actually get a decent interaction with, also super awesome. Just saying, I know Magnus really wouldn't want to hear this, but him and Asmodeus are kind of similar. Like, okay, so Magnus is all accusatory, like, what do you really want, father? Like, what do you want? What are you doing here? I don't want to talk to you. So get to the point. And Asmodeus says, I want to talk to my son. It has been almost 2 centuries since we last spoke, Magnus. You don't write, you don't call, you don't make sacrifices on my altar. It wounds your fond parent. Like, he's so dramatic, like Magnus. You kinda act like your daddy sometimes. Just like, Magnus, I know you don't want to hear this, but you're a little bit like Asmodeus. Also to note that I found interesting, Asmodeus brings up the Nephilim and that they love their children, and Magnus is like, you're incapable of love, and he's like, but we can feel pride. I'm proud of you because you're powerful. I don't think he sees Magnus necessarily as his child, but as an object, or not an object, but like, I guess like an object or a tool in his belt. Something he can be proud of, but doesn't love, because I don't think greater demons are capable of love, kind of like psychopaths. They're just not, it's not wired into them. They can't feel it. But pride makes a lot of sense. Because it would be him showing traits that Asmodeus sees in himself, like, oh, you're being like me. I can be proud of that. Although I definitely feel for Magnus, because Asmodeus, totally not a cool father. Like, I mean, he's cool in that he's evil sense, but he's totally been manipulating this cult and Shinyun the whole time, while Shinyun was technically in charge throughout most of this book. Asmodeus was pulling all of the strings in reality. So that's kind of cool, though, that he was able to do that when he's not even in the mortal realms or whatever. He was still like in Edom, right? But yeah, so he wants Magnus because he's the only promising child he's ever had, and Magnus is like, no. But I just enjoy the similarities, and he even flourishes his hands about in dramatic gestures like Magnus does. It's like, ooh, you don't want to be like your dad, but you share mannerisms. Sorry, Magnus. Not that that's like terrible. If you're gonna share something, flair is not a bad thing to share with your parent, or be something you have in common with them, Okay, we are done. And this book just has so many feelings. Like, it's really not a surprise why this one is still my favorite Shadowhunters book that I have read. Just, oh, it's so good. Okay. And it has maybe one of my favorite lines out of just any book that I have read. So at the end, Alec and Magnus give up on their vacation because they're like, we need a vacation from the vacation. So, right, they go back to Magnus's apartment in Brooklyn. They don't tell anyone they're home. They basically lie and like fake some vacation photos for shenanigans, for reasons, you know, to fake everybody out. So they don't come asking questions or like, hey, you're back, let's hang out. They're like, no, we don't want that. So they are home, they're alone, they can finally have some alone vacation time, and it ends when they're just lying in bed together and Magnus is pondering, right? He's thinking to himself. Magnus had always had a wanderer's heart. Over the centuries, he had adventured in so many different places, always looking for something that would fulfill his restless hunger. He never realized how all the pieces could fall together, how home could be somewhere and someone. He belonged with Alec. His wandering heart could rest. I just love that. That little tiny paragraph. This one. I don't know. I think that's so beautifully written, and I think it just so perfectly describes Magnus. Like, I don't know. It's so beautiful to me. And Alec, once again, prior to them having their alone time, got to basically just tell Magnus, you know, I had fun. I didn't need a vacation. I just need you. And, like, I want this. I want us. Do you not understand that from, you know, kissing you in front of the entire clave and following you around Europe, not asking any questions, lying to other Shadowhunters for you. I would have lied to the clave. Like, is that not clear that I am in love with you, Magnus? Like, I love Alec in this book. He has strong opinions when it comes to how he feels about Magnus, because Magnus is very insecure about that. He thinks Alec's gonna bolt at any minute, and Alec's like, no, you are stuck with me, Warlock. Like, in the best way, you are stuck with me. And Magnus is like, I don't know, you could still. And Alec's like, no, I am not going anywhere. I love you. You are stuck with me, which is beautiful. So yeah, okay, However, it doesn't end on a totally happy note. It does set up the next book, The Lost Book of the White, where Shen Yun returns to a captive Ragnar Fell. But we did end almost on a happy note with Magnus realizing that Alec is his home. It's just so beautifully done. I mentioned this earlier. I love this book for so many reasons. The pacing I like a lot better than the other Shadowhunters novels. It's not, it doesn't take half the book to get going. It's consistent. It has consistent plot, consistent action. You know, there's always something going on. I don't mind that things take time to build up in like the Mortal Instruments and stuff, but I like how it was written in Red Scrolls, how, you know, Alec and Magnus, like, it was never a dull moment, I guess. There is some moments in the Mortal Instruments that feel a smidgen dull to me. Like, it's not badly written, it's just, I don't know. It's not, I don't know how to explain it other than that. I also like that this is just from Alec and Magnus's perspectives. Like, that appeals to me a lot. Obviously, because they are like my favorite characters in the Mortal Instruments, in the Shadowhunters universe. Alec and Magnus are my favorites. And I think because we are limited to just two perspectives, we get more, obviously we get more time with them, so I think that might be why I enjoy this more. Not just because Alec and Magnus are my favorite, but when you just have the two perspectives, you're getting more out of it, I guess, when it comes to the characters, with the progression, their connections to the story. Like, both Magnus and Alec have a lot of good character development in this book, which I am hopefully going to see continue in the rest of the Mortal Instruments. I know there's a hiccup somewhere in there. I think it's in the City of Fallen Angels, actually, but I don't know. Which would be my next book. But this book gives you a lot of insight into both Alec and Magnus's characters, which is not something we get in the Mortal Instruments. We do not get all of their thoughts, what's going on in their heads, the feelings, the insecurities, just the depth of their love for each other. Like, we don't get that. That's why this is such a good book, and you should probably totally read this in, like, the order that it happens in the series, so, like, right after City of Glass, because this would give you lots of good insights to their characters. Oh, so good. So good. It is still my favorite, and I think it is more my favorite now because I have the Mortal Instruments context now. I know the details, I know what happened, I know them as their book characters. I know them as characters. I've watched their relationship develop or start, really. They were kind of like on again, off again ish until City of Glass, but I got to see that build up. I got to see how it started again ish, because we didn't actually get to see those moments. Like, we don't even get to see their first kiss. That should be in there. But we saw them go from this secret thing, and now Alec is making out with him at Downworld parties. So proud. Absolutely in love with this book. And I still would recommend it, even if you haven't read any of the Shadowhunters novels, but say you've watched the show and you wanted to read some of the books, I would totally recommend this one. You don't need a ton of the book context to still enjoy it, because this, like I said before, this was my first Shadowhunters novel that I read. I had no book context or show context whatsoever. I went into this totally blind and still read it, still enjoyed it, still loved Magnus and Alec. So, it's definitely something I will recommend, like, all the time. And that was a very, very good reread for me. And it was such a much needed break from Clary and Jace. Like, no offense to them, but I needed a good Magnus and Alec break. I would much rather read about them anyway. But that's probably beside the point. Oh. It was such a good reread. I should reread this like once a year, because this is wonderful. Maybe twice a year. I don't know. Maybe that's pushing it. Maybe not. You can never have too much Malik. But definitely a much needed reread. I love so much about this book. And if you're not Alec's biggest fan, like if you are starting the Mortal Instruments, like say you've read City of Bones, City of Ashes, but you haven't gotten past City of Glass yet, I would definitely read this after City of Glass, because Alec didn't even start to grow on me as a book character until City of Glass. So if you're not his biggest fan, I think this would really help you understand Alec as a character, and it would maybe get you to like him a little more, because he's definitely not the same Alec from those 3 books. I don't know what he's like in later books, but the Alec we see in Red Scrolls is just amazing. Magnus has always been amazing. We just see a lot more of his fears, his worries, and his insecurities, because when we see him in the Mortal Instruments, he's so confident and strong, and he doesn't show any of those signs of weakness, that he's, you know, like everybody else. He's like, nah, I'm perfect. But really, as we see in here, he has plenty of fears, plenty of insecurities, and that's a nice side of Magnus to see too, because that's not a side of him we typically would get to see, especially in like the Mortal Instruments or the other main series books, I would imagine. So we get to see depth to their characters. I've probably reiterated that point a lot, but it's like really late at night, I imagine. I don't even know what time it is. Should we look? Yeah, okay, it is late. It's like 3:40 in the morning. So I've been reading for maybe 3 hours? 4 hours. 4 hours? I don't know. I've been reading a long time and it's late, so I'm tired. So if I've repeated a lot of stuff, I am sorry. Maybe I should end things here before I get too repetitive in my thought process. I could do a whole TED talk on like Magnus and his character. So I think the only other really thing to note is how, despite clearly not being like his father, Asmodeus still gets in Magnus's head, and he still like managed to make him afraid, you know, like, don't tell Alec that I'm your father or I'll kill him. Like, how are you gonna kill him, Asmodeus? You're an Edom. Like, you couldn't even get Shinyun to summon you, and then she's gonna go off and be a puppet for someone higher up on the demon food chain than you. So, haha. I don't know. But that does speak to Asmodeus's manipulative abilities. Like, he manipulated that whole cult, obviously, in Shinyun, but he still has a hold on Magnus for now, which I hope Alec can help him with that. As of right now, he still hasn't told Alec, you know, that Asmodeus is his father, but I know he tells him eventually. I don't know when, but I know it happens. Yeah, so super sweet, super well paced for a Shadowhunters novel. Love it. Always something going on. Even if it's not shenanigans, it's something sweet, like when they were dancing together at the Downworlder victory party, and it still feels like things are moving along. We're still getting something out of it. We're learning something about the characters. There's development for the characters. While I love the Mortal Instruments, like I said, there's some kind of slow moments that it's fine, but, you know, like, it's fine, but we could have had something else in there. I don't hate it. It's still good. It's still written well, but it could be like this. Could be perfecter. Not that this is perfect, but as far as Shadowhunters books go, this one's, I think, the most perfect, and I love it, and I will love it forever. Okay, I'm done. That was my reread of the Red Scrolls of Magic. Thank you for bearing with me through that. This was a really quick read through for me. Same day. same day and we're done with the book. Like, I did 2 reading sessions, that was it, in the same day. Like, for the other Shadowhunters books I've been reading, it's taken a couple days total. Not necessarily back to back, but, you know, total it's been like a couple days, and this one was like one day, boom, done, because it's so good. If you enjoyed this reading vlog and you want to continue this journey with me, next up will be City of Fallen Angels, going back to the Mortal Instruments. And if you want to leave a like, a comment, or subscribe, I would really appreciate it. And I will see you guys in the next vlog.